and welcome to another Tutorial Tuesday. This week I've prepared for you a project using the 3D Embossabilities by Spellbinders, and they are unique 3D embossing folders that have a sculpted surface, and it gives you that dimensional embossing that you can't find in any other embossing folders, and it's also a letterpress. Before I proceed with the tutorial, here's what you'll need to complete today's project. The Ornamental Swirls 3D Embossabilities folder by Spellbinders, Tim Holtz Worn Text stamp set, some black StazOn, Claudine Hellemeth Studio charcoal black paint, patinas from the Vintage collection, the color Moss and Nouveau Silver, a reliefing block by Vintage, Scrap Dots glue by Helmar, a piece of green metal sheet, and they are sold individually and they come in different colors, as well as a couple of sponges. I cut out a piece out of the green metal sheet to size with the folder, and if I'm holding the folder with the Spellbinder logo on it, I will open it up and place the colored side facing me, so that way I know that it will imprint the right way. Otherwise you'll get the raised portion of the design on the silver side. I want it on the green side, so I'm just going to place that in there. So I have my multi-purpose platform for my big shot, the die, the folder with the metal sheet, as well as one cutting pad. Now Spellbinders recommend that you also add a piece of cardstock as a shim, but depending on your machine you might not need it. All machines are calibrated differently. Mine doesn't need it, so I'm just going to run this through my machine and I'll be right back. And you're going to see the beautiful impression that you get. Look how gorgeous that is. So I'm going to cut around that piece with a pair of scissors. The reason why I'm using the scissors is that I don't want to take the chance of ruining the raised patterns when I put it into my paper trimmer. And there it is. So here's my trimmed piece, and I also wanted to talk to you about what makes this what we call the 3D embossing folders. There are two reasons. First of all, as opposed to a regular embossing folder, you have those nice rounded edges around all the embossed areas. So that is one difference. The other one also is that you have two different levels of embossing. So that's why these are called 3D Embossabilities, and they really pop. Now we're not done with this. We're going to give it a treatment to make it look more vintage, and for this I'm going to use some Claudine Hellemeth paint, the black, the charcoal black. So I'm just first going to use a sponge and the Claudine Hellemeth paint to cover most of the debossed areas, and you'll see what I mean by that when I start working on the piece. So I've got a sponge here. As you can see, I tested it out. Now, when you can use other products as well. You could also use alcohol inks, would do the same, or even StazOn ink. I just chose to use the paint because I like the way it looks. It gives it that beautiful matte finish, much like something that you would find on a on a vintage piece. So I'm just going to make sure that I have enough in the nooks and crannies. And I'm not aiming for a perfect coverage, and as you can see, of course, here I'm going to just dab around the edges here. I could have gone ahead and covered my piece with a brush instead of using a sponge, but for this instance I'm going for a very vintage look, and I did not specifically want it to cover all of the green areas. For instance, you can see here there's a little bit of green showing through, and this is exactly what I wanted. My piece should be dry by now, but I'm just going to zap it just a little bit just to make sure that all the paint is dried. Be careful because you're working with metal and could get pretty hot, so just handle it with care. Next I'm going to use what we call a reliefing block by Vintage again, and this block was also specifically designed to work on metal. On the block itself, you'll notice that there are different colors of surfaces. You have the white one, the dark gray, and the lighter gray. The dark one is the heavier grit, the white one is medium, and then the light gray is mostly for buffing. So what I'm going to use now is the dark one, and I'm going to remove most of the ink. And you'll start seeing the green as well as the silver shining through. Let me just get close up. And I don't want to rub too hard because I don't want to remove all of my embossing. So I'm just going to go gradually. And if you feel that the heavier grit is not something that you're comfortable with, you can use the medium grit like I'm using right now. I'm using the medium grit, which is the white side. One word of caution, do not use the sanding block over your craft sheet. This is one I'm working on a piece of paper towel right now, because you will ruin your craft sheet and you don't want to do that. Now for the second level of embossed areas, I'm going with the corner of my sanding block so that these little flowers also get distressed. So I'm just going to keep sanding until I'm happy with the result, and I'll come back to you and show you the finished product. Okay. So I'm done sanding my piece, and if you feel that you have flattened out some areas with the pressure, you can go ahead and put it back in the folder. Because the areas are already raised, when you put them in, when you put your piece of metal inside the folder, it will automatically catch at the right spot and you can just emboss it a second time. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use the light gray and just buff over the areas, just to make the metal pop and make it shinier. And you can also go over it with a clean rag. I'm just going to use the back of this one just to get rid of all the excess little metal dust from the sanding. Next I'm going to push the vintage envelope a little bit further. I'm going to add some patina in moss and some patina in Nouveau Silver. And the reason why I'm going to do this is I want to lighten up especially this area, because I will be stamping over there, and some of the debossed areas inside here. So I'm just going to add, I'm going to shake those bottles well. I'm going to add a bit of moss on my craft mat, as well as a little bit of Nouveau Silver. Just going to just dab with the sponge, and I'm going to create some type of a faux finish right here on that beautiful banner, or the scroll. I guess it's a scroll. And in some areas right here. And I'm being very random. I'm not thinking about that too much. I really want to have that mottled effect. I don't want to have anything perfect. So now, before it actually dries completely, I'm going to take my vintage block and I'm going to keep on adding some of the patina until I'm happy with the result. Now remember also, you don't want to hide the original green color of the whole piece, but you want to have a good contrast as well. So the blend of the patina, the original metal, the green metal, and the black paint and the sanded area, these all contribute to make this wonderful piece. I love it. I think it's gorgeous. And now I'm going to sand a little bit more. Look at that. Woo! Look at this. How gorgeous. And you can work at this as however long you want. This is a matter of preference. Some people don't like it with too much silver showing. I happen to like it, but I also like the effect of the patina in the debossed areas right here. I'm going to give you a close-up in a minute as soon as I'm done working with this. I might even go in the middle with some more of that green paint, the green patina, just so that it gives me a lighter area to stamp on. Oh, it's so beautiful. That stencil, or that emboss, the 3D Embossabilities, is just stunning. So let me give you a close-up of this. Look at how gorgeous that is. Ah, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So I think I'm just going to lighten up this area here. I'm just going to add a bit of the patina, the moss patina. Yeah, that's better. It's just going to give us a lighter green. And this time I'm just going to add it on the scroll. So as I was putting this together, I decided to, instead of making a card, I decided that this would be the perfect cover for an art journal. So what I did is I took the brand new Tim Holtz stamp set. It's his a worn text alphabet stamp, gorgeous letters, and you've got the capital letters and the small letters as well. And what I did is I spelled journal, and I put down the letters so that it would fit that scroll of my embossed area. I'm going to take my acrylic block and grab all my letters, and I'm going to stamp all at once so that I have, so that I stamp the whole title all together. And of course I'm going to stamp with StazOn. Well, I forgot to hit the record button. So as you can see, my title is already stamped, and there's no going back because I just stamped it with StazOn. So unfortunately I can't redo it for you guys to see. But as you can see, it's stamped beautifully. I love the way it looks. And by grabbing all the letters at once, because this is grunge, so it doesn't really matter if the letters are not spaced evenly. This is made to be an antique piece, and I find the look is just perfect. I love it, love it. So the cover of my journal is basically done. I have a little journal that I put together here with just some old basic gray paper that I had in my stash, and I'm going to use the Scrap Dots glue to glue the cover on. The reason why I want to use this is that This glue is silicone base, and what that's going to allow me to do is to retain that embossed shape in the middle. This is a large area right here, and I'm afraid that with time this area here will collapse, and because the metal is pliable, it's bound to happen, and I want this to stay as true to its form as possible. So I'm going to use the scrap dots, and because it's silicone based, it will dry clear, and it will also dry as is, meaning that if you this will harden and make like a bond that will retain its shape. So I'm just going to put a line of glue all around the edges, and I've already filled in the cavity. And really it's this, you know, it's really the only area where I really want to have that hold its shape. So I'm not going to worry about the rest of all the small cavities. I'm just going to spread the glue, the rest of the glue all over. Okay, so that's going to give it some support, and that will not fade in time with time. And then I'm just going to flip this over, center it on the top of my album. Just press down gently. And once this is dry, it's never going to move. And there we have it. Now obviously you're not limited to metal. You can also use the 3D Embossabilities with paper. And so I've gone ahead and prepared this card for you. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see the details. So what I did is I embossed it with just a regular white cardstock. And then I took some distress inks and I inked around the edges of the scroll, and I did the same here for the vines. And I finished it off with some little dots of liquid pearls. And I also took some Inca Gold and I rubbed just the top of the flourishes and the scroll. And that just gives us a nice shine to it. I just think that this style of pattern dictates something shiny. I don't know, but this is what I see when I look at the embossing folder. But this is really pretty. It's a very elegant style. So these are my two projects. I hope that you've enjoyed this, and I hope that you will come and check out the other embossabilities, the 3D embossabilities that we have. I know also that we can use the that type of embossabilities as a letterpress, but that might be something for another tutorial. I'm going to give you a close-up here again of the album cover. I love the reflection of the metal. It's so gorgeous. I'm going to zoom in as close as I can so that you can see in the nooks and crannies. I can still see the dark green of the original metal sheet, which is what I wanted. And then we have the black and the patina and the sanding. And I just, the effect is stunning. Look at that. It looks like a medieval piece. I love it. Love it, love it. And Tim Holtz's alphabet is the perfect companion for this style of design, I find. As usual, thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below, and I will see you next week.